All right, guys, and thank you for joining me for another episode in our long-running series, the FlipLogic Real Estate Show, where I'll go over any deal analysis on deals, or at least we'll either one that we're working on with a member already, and then we'll also do Q&A to answer any real estate questions you may have. And we'll run for an hour or until all questions are exhausted, whichever comes first. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. And as we go ahead and do that, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, James. So let me go ahead and move James into the panelist section and allow him to talk. He's going to need to be able to do that. James, are you there? Can you hear me? James, can you hear me? Let me see there. You were muted.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, perfect. And then I'll also go ahead and bring up my screen share as well. Let's see, hold on here 1 second. Let me grab that. All right, and let's see, that should do it. All right, cool. So guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to cover some things that I'd like to cover, and that, at any point, should you have a question or something that you think of or that you discover that you'd like to interject on, or maybe, a question that's even unrelated, you can go ahead and get those in the Q&A chat box, and I'll get to those in the order that they're received. Cool. So actually what I want to do, and hopefully, Maurice, this is his deal that I wanted to cover this evening, and hopefully he'll jump on the call. But this is actually a really cool deal, and I'm going to pull it up here in the leads. Maurice's deal is, here we go, this is actually a really cool deal because it's a true no money down deal. And what I mean by that is Maurice was able to find a motivated seller, and here's the purchase agreement that we have with him. He was able to find a motivated seller who wanted to be done with the property. He's going to move out of state. He's military. I think he's active. Maybe he's a veteran. He's either active or a veteran, but he's moving out of state, and he wants to sell this property. And he owes, and I'll show you right now, he owes, here in the document folder, here's his most recent mortgage statement. Oops. I don't know if you guys can see that, if it's big enough, but the seller actually owes, where's the principal amount? Right here. He owes $74,496.97. So basically he owes $74,500, right? And that breaks down to a monthly payment of $497 a month. And that $497 includes principal, interest, and then the escrow. This is an impounded amount. So that's going to be the property taxes. So insurance is separate. That's probably going to be like an extra, I don't know, I'd say $1,000 a year, $900 a year. So it's going to be around $75 a month. So our $500 monthly payment will go up to, when we bring in insurance, our 500 will go to let's call it 575. So that's what we'll have. And we won't have to bring any money to closing except closing costs, which will be, I don't think it'll be any more than $1,000 to cover the escrow and title fees and, transfer, city and county transfer taxes. So, so let me cut to, so 74,500, and hopefully I'm going to check our, let's see if Maurice is here. I don't see Maurice here. He may be joining us. So we'll see if he joins us, but he basically asked if the seller would be willing to sell for what they owe on it, which was 74,500. The seller agreed 100. We gave ourselves 21 days to close, and then we just put $100 deposit on there. And the reason for that, we could have done it with a $10 deposit. We did it with the trick. This is it right here for how do you write up what you call this is a subject to offer, which means we're buying the property subject to that first mortgage. So this magic phrase right here, this allows us to leave that first mortgage in place. So when we go to close escrow actually puts that on the closing statement to where we don't have to get a new loan to bring that to closing, right? We get to use that as a credit to our benefit. So Wells Fargo first mortgage to remain in place subject to the purchase. So that means that they won't pay that off. We just have to bring the difference between what's owed and then what we agreed to purchase it for, which was $74,500, which is $3.03. So we'll bring $3.03 to closing. We've got 10 days before we go hard on our deposit, right? Before we go non-refundable. And then we offered to pay all the closing costs, which shouldn't be more than about, I'm guessing $1,000. We haven't got a settlement statement yet to show us what all the fees break down to be. And that's about it. That's pretty simple. We put a 21-day closing period on there. Everything else on this purchase agreement is just boilerplated. And this comes right out of FlipLogic. It's all boilerplated except the other terms down here, which is as is sale. We can close in the vesting of our choice. That allows us to assign it if we're going to assign it, because that's what we're going to talk about next is what's the exit strategy on here and how are we going to make some money on it, right? That's what we're all here for. And then the seller wanted us to add in this language, which is sellers indemnified and not liable for any damages, lawsuits, or claims that occur on the property, because the seller is still liable for the mortgage, right? We're going to take title, but the loan will still be in the seller's name. So they wanted us to add that in there. Buyer to perform any improvements in a good workmanlike manner by a licensed professional and done to city code. Buyer is a licensed real estate broker and corporation and intends to purchase property for profit. That last line I added in because this is a deal partner deal. Maurice and us were splitting it 50-50. This is the unsigned version. We've got the signed version in the folder. And since it's a deal partnering deal with Maurice, he wanted a deal partner on it. So we're on there as 50%. He's on there. His LLC's on there as 50%. If it was his individual name, if he didn't have an LLC, that would be fine in this case. And it's tenants in common. So that's how we're taking title. It's 50-50 tenants in common for this property. Let me see. Actually, Maurice is here, so I'll Maurice, I unmuted you, so if you're on the line, let us know. Maurice, you on the call?
Looks like he's still muted.
Let's see. Let me see if I can get Maurice off mute. Let's see, Maurice. He jumped off there. He's on now. How about that? Hey, Maurice, can you hear us? How about that? I may need to. There we go. Maurice, can you hear us? Hey, Maurice.
Says he can hear us on the panel. Maybe his mic isn't activated.
Maurice, maybe you've got mute on your microphone. Did you call in on a phone? If so, you'll want to unmute your phone. Or we can't hear you, in other words. So, well, hopefully you can get that sorted out. But if you can, great. We'd love to get your input on, how you located the lead, the opening conversation, how it went with the seller. So I think that would add a lot of value and be a great point to cover. And also, so getting back to, all right, how are we going to turn this deal? What's our exit strategy? How are we going to make any money with it? So the two ways that we're actually marketing this property at the moment. One is, let's see, I'm going to pull up some of the comps here in the area so you guys can see it. And then I'll actually pull up a street view so you guys can see that. So what we did was we put up some ads on Craigslist and in the Facebook Marketplace. And we put up a rent to own ad and just a for sale, just a straight sale ad. So in Craigslist under for rent, we offered to rent it at $975 as a rent to own. So they pay $975 a month on a rent to own, and they can own the property. The purchase price will be $125,000, and then they've got to put $5,000 to $10,000 down. And then they can exercise the option to buy it on the rent to own. They can exercise that. We prefer within 12 months, but we'll give them up to 24 months to do it. But what we'll do is we'll limit it to 12 months, and they need to pay an extension fee if they want to extend that. The second way is we put up an ad to sell it for $89,000. So if they put $15,000 down, then they can take over, our contract, right? So it's basically a $15,000 assignment fee, and then they just take over our contract. They're the new owner, and then they make the $497 payment to whoever it is. I think it's Wells Fargo. So that's two ways we're going to do it. So the second way would be great. We get a larger lump sum up front, and we're out of the deal completely on an assignment. $15,000. Maurice gets $7,500. We get $7,500. And then the second way is the rent to own, where somebody comes in with $5,000 to $10,000 down, and we split that minus the closing costs, which is maybe going to be $1,000. So then we split that upfront money. Then the tenant buyer is what they're called. They'll then make the $975 monthly payment. So that's a $400 monthly profit margin, right, between the $575 monthly payment and the $975 rent. So we'd split that. So Maurice will get $200 a month. We get $200 a month. And then when the tenant buyer goes to exercise the option, get their new purchase loan through, say, Wells Fargo or Chase for the $125,000, then we'll get the difference between, let's just say they put $5,000 down and we're selling it for $125,000. So then they only owe $120,000 minus the, let's just call it $75,000 that we owe on it. So we get another, what's that? 120 minus 75. That's another 25, 45. We get another $45,000 at closing that we'd split. So obviously the rent to own, we get paid 3 times, and we maximize the retail. We get to tap into the retail value, the retail equity of the property if we do it that way. We just have to wait longer, but we get a little money up front during the process. Or we can get a little more money up front and just assign the deal and just be done with it. So we let those ads run over the weekend. There was a couple of showings over the weekend, and I was hoping we could get Maurice on the line to then fill us in. Let's see. So Maurice is here, but Maurice, we need you to call in. We need you to call in or use a microphone or unmute your microphone so we can hear you. We want to get some audio. So let's see. I've unmuted your.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
All right. How's it going?
Hey, good, Maurice. All right. So were you able to catch what we covered so far?
I had to get out and then re-log back in. I had to go through my settings, but yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Actually, let's start with actually bring us up to speed on how did your, and I'm reloading my screen here so we can look at some of the comps and things, but bring us up to speed on the ads that you posted, the rent to own ads and the for sale ads, and where we're at with that.
So pretty much I posted up rent to own under Facebook and Craigslist. The majority of the people that's been calling me were all actually from Facebook, surprisingly. Yeah, let's see. It was 5,000 down and rent was $975. And people were actually calling for it.
Okay.
Like
so
right now I have I have scheduled like 8 people that's supposed to go by and see it.
Okay. So you've got eight appointments with tenant buyers to go by and see the property. Is that right?
Yes.
Let me see here. Hold on one second. This is I don't know if it's my, something causing me to be able to pull up the map. But anyway, so most of the traffic that you're getting is from your Facebook Marketplace post?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have 2 ads in Facebook Marketplace or what do you have in Facebook Marketplace?
I have an ad in all the marketplaces that are in that South Carolina area.
Okay, so in the Facebook Marketplace, you've got one for rent, right? At $975, and you're pitching it rent to own. Okay, and then the other one is just a straight sale at $89,000.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've had a few investors call, and they're interested as well. So they're part of the 8 people that are supposed to go by and see it. So that makes like 10.
Okay. Okay, great. When are these folks going by? Do we know?
Actually, like next week. There's a couple coming on tomorrow. One actually went by today, and she hasn't gotten back to me yet, but I'm sure she will.
Okay. Okay. So, and then I know we've had a few people go by so far, and so far those folks, it hasn't worked for them yet. Is that right? We don't have anybody who's ready to pull the trigger and wire money to escrow at this point.
Not at this point, no.
My map's not loading. Okay. All right. And the way that we came to the conclusion on our numbers was, I know we looked at some of the comps in the area, and the property does need some work. But basically what makes this deal so attractive is that it has seller financing on it. And I'm actually going to pull up the Zillow profile of it so you guys can see it. And I think you're going to claim it and put it up on Zillow, but I don't think, so sorry guys, I don't know why my internet's, well, I could probably tell you why, because I'm on a boat and it's raining and I have a line of sight connection. So, so I'm not going to be able to get, so a lot of my stuff's not going to load here. Anyway, so that that basically kind of covers it.
On Zillow, I was gonna say on
I know
Zillow,
what I wanted.
it's you can only put one.
I know. Yeah, I know what I wanted to ask you. I was going to say, number one, since we have it under contract, you could obviously claim this property now and do a for sale by owner post on it. That wouldn't be a bad thing to do.
I was surprised that this was actually still up.
Well, it's not. It's not. If it was up, it would have a red active or it would have a purple for rent if it was live, but it's not. So you're going to want to go in there and redo that.
No problem.
But the other thing I wanted to do that I'm sure everybody, I don't have any questions from anybody yet, or it looks like maybe I've got maybe some starting to come in here. But one of the questions is you know, maybe you could tell us, how did you find this lead and seller, and like, you know, what was your opening conversation like?
Really, he found me, and the conversation was mostly he wanted 100 for it, and then I asked him if there was a mortgage on it. He said it was, and that's when I brought up subject to, and noticed that all he really wanted was to pay off the rest of the mortgage. He just didn't want it anymore. He was like really highly motivated, on top of the fact that he was moving. So we really talked, and brought up a subject to, and he was okay with it.
Got it. Okay. So basically you called him, he wanted 100 grand for it. And then you asked him how much did he owe on it. And then you basically said, hey, would you be willing to sell for what you owe?
Yeah. And he agreed.
Okay. And then okay, great. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And then we said we were gonna leave the mortgage in place and just take over the payments, make the payments on it.
Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. And then you were saying he found you. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I have a
How did that
Facebook
go?
page. Yeah, I have a Facebook page, and it's not the one that you see on here. It's actually a different one. And I market to all the marketplaces. And honestly, I don't remember marketing in South Carolina, but I guess he found me somehow.
Okay, so you've got ads up in like Facebook Marketplace?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got ads up in Facebook Marketplace basically saying, you know, if you're interested in selling, give you a call.
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. If you're trying to sell your home, and then I leave my number on there, and I have the option for them to message me through a messenger app. I put that up there.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I know Facebook Marketplace is pretty huge with Facebook Marketplace. I've gotten a lot of tenant leads myself. So that's basically what you were advertising this property as that way on the back end, right? On the disposition end, on the sale end.
Yeah.
To get rid of it, you're generating a lot of traffic for buyers and tenant buyers that way.
Yes, a whole lot. Like
then of course,
I'm still getting calls. Like it's just crazy.
Okay, cool. And then you're sending them all over there so they can go walk it, so we can get their best and final number out of them.
Yes.
Would you say you're getting more tenant buyers or just straight buyers?
Tenant buyers. Yeah, majority of them are tenant buyers. I have 3 cash buyers, and they all want me to call them tomorrow so I can discuss anything that needs to be done. They're scheduled to go see the house. One's going Wednesday, and I try to keep them from going at the same day. But yeah, like Wednesday,
Actually,
Thursday.
I would actually say don't even worry about that. It's actually a good thing. It gets them all to go at the same time because it'll create FOMO, a little fear of
Okay.
missing out.
Okay.
So that's okay. Another question people might be wondering is how are these folks getting access to the property? There's no lockbox on here. It is vacant. And there is a key with the neighbor. So the neighbor is letting these folks in. If that becomes too much an inconvenience, Marie says, tell them put a combo lockbox on the door.
Yeah.
We'll cash app them or Venmo them for it, PayPal them for it. It's like $10 from Home Depot,
Okay, I'll let them know.
Okay. Cool. All right. So that was pretty good. So does anybody else have any other questions on that? I think it was pretty helpful. I guess my question is why South Carolina? You're in Los Angeles, is that right?
Yes.
So you're in Los Angeles. When you first told me, you're like, hey, because you've been on the system for like almost 30 days, and maybe you probably have some background experience, doing some real estate before that. And then when you called me and you said you had a deal in South Carolina, I was like, man, how'd you end up I'm curious. I never asked you. I was just like, all right, well, but why South Carolina of all places?
Actually, it was just him calling. I didn't even think about South Carolina. I've never thought about South Carolina. North Carolina. Oh, actually, yeah, there was a reason why. I had a friend who stayed in South Carolina, and we talked a lot, and she said that there's a lot of people down there looking for to sell their homes. So that's when I posted the app for South Carolina, not thinking that it was going to actually do anything, but apparently it did.
Yeah,
So,
that's the other cool thing about this side of the business, or this way of flipping houses, just by flipping real estate contracts, is because it really is virtual, right? You're in Los Angeles, this house is in South Carolina. We put it under contract a couple days ago. We've got buyers walking it, and neither you or myself have ever gone to see the property. I mean, we're not even in the same state, for God's sake.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, which is cool. And then we don't have to go there for closing. Closing is all done. As far as paperwork goes, if we just do an assignment, we won't even have to meet with a notary. But it can all be done. The documents can all be sent, over email. And then if we do end up putting a tenant buyer in it, then we will take title. We actually will end up, buying the property. We'll take title, and then we will have to have escrow send out our escrow packages. We'll have to meet with a mobile notary. You'll go meet with one on your own. I'll meet with one on my own, or they can actually come to you. And then we just send it. We just drop that in the mail. That goes back out to escrow, and then it'll close, and the tenant buyer will end up taking possession via lease purchase option, which is a fancy way of saying rent to own. So anyway, that's I think probably the biggest and most important part that people can kind of take away from this, as far as like a document standpoint. This is the only document we've used so far. It's just a purchase agreement. And this is all templated in FlipLogic. You just go to actions, generate contract, and then you can generate the nationwide purchase and sale agreement. And I'll actually make a video on this very soon. So then, you fill in these fields, which fills in the purchase agreement, and then you can generate it and you can download it, or you can e-sign it. And then that's it. You just get it over to the seller by email. They sign, send it back, and then we forward it over to escrow, and then wired in $100 deposit. Now we control the deal. And then from there, we put up ads, or Maurice put up ads on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and now we're generating all sorts of interest on it.
Yeah.
From that. So
Ryan, I have one question.
Good. Yeah.
Why put down the $100 earnest money?
Well, with any deal, you have to put in a deposit. A deposit needs to go into escrow. That's part of what makes a contract a binding legal contract. Is you have to have consideration, which is money in this case. So it could have been, it could have been $10.
Okay.
Could have been $10. So the reason why 100 was just because, 100 was, I wanted to use 100. Would you say you learned a lot on this deal?
Me?
Maurice?
Yes. Yeah, I did. It's
cool.
My first one doing a subject to, and I didn't realize that sellers would actually be willing to do it so easily. Yeah.
And again, this is the whole part of a subject to, because some people think, man, that sounds so confusing. Subject to, how do I leave the seller's loan in place and take over the payments? How do you even write that up? You're looking at it. It's this one section right here, section D on the front of the purchase agreement. You literally just put in the loan amount that they owe, right, in the first loan. Boom, put that in. And then you just add this language to the additional financing terms, which is basically you're saying, don't pay this off. We're leaving it in place, right? The Wells Fargo first mortgage to remain in place, subject to the purchase. That's it. That's really it. And then what makes it no money down is, well, between what's owed on the property, right, which is basically $74,500, and then what you and seller agree to for them to sell it at, for you to buy it at, you're going to have to bring that difference in cash, right? So what makes it no money down is if you can agree to buy it for what they owe, which in this case, Maurice did. And so that's what made it a no money down deal. No money down, meaning we don't have to put any money down, right? There's no down payment. But is there money involved in this deal? Potentially, if we end up buying it and putting a tenant buyer in there, yes, it will require money, which is going to be the closing costs. Now, does that money have to come out of our pocket? No, it doesn't. This deposit did. This $100 deposit did, because that's got to be there within 3 business days. But we have 21 days to close on it. So if one of Maurice's tenant buyers goes by the property tomorrow and says, hey, I walked it, I love it, I want it, I'll do, we gave them a range, $5,000 to $10,000 down, right? We let tenants know, because sometimes we'll say, what's the least I can put down, or how much do I have to put down? We let them know, hey, we're taking lots of applications. The more money you put down, the stronger your application, because we're literally not worrying about their credit. Bad credit's okay. What drives the deal for our tenant buyer is how much money they're going to put down, right? That's what we're letting them know, is the more you put down, the stronger your application. Because that is their credit, is the amount of money they're putting down. And so let's say we only get somebody. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say one of the people actually wanted to put down $8,000 after they saw it. If they liked it, they were willing to put down $8,000.
Okay. So let's say that we end up going with that person and they put down $8,000. So we'll sign a lease agreement with them. We'll say we'll do a 1-year lease at $975 a month. We'll give them a purchase agreement for $125,000, and then we'll give them the option agreement. Let's say we'll call it a 12-month option with one 12-month extension, right? And they can execute that at any time. They just have to give us written notice, right? And the reason why they'll execute that and give us written notice is when they're ready to get their loan through their mortgage banker, right? So what they'll do is once we sign that paperwork with them, they'll then wire us the money, or we'll have them wire it to escrow. And then we will use that money to cover the closing costs, right? And then the balance after all the closing costs from that amount, the balance will have them disperse 50-50, 50% to you, 50% to me, and they'll close the transaction. We'll take title, and then our tenant buyer will have the security of knowing that their paperwork's all signed, they're in, and then they'll start making payments. And then we'll just hand it off to a loan servicer, which I already have pulled up here. We'll hand it off to Del Toro Loan Servicing, and then they'll handle all of the the payments and the principal balance amounts. So they'll keep track of all that, and they'll send a mortgage coupon or a statement basically to our tenant buyer every month, so they know what their balance is on what their balance is from the amount that they put down, in terms of how much they have to get a loan for, to purchase the property. So Del Toro Loan Servicing will take care of all that. And I think they do it all for I want to say $15 a month, I think is what the servicing cost is on that. So pretty reasonable, and it eliminates all the headache of keeping track of all of that. Cool. Let me take a look here. We're getting close to the end of the call, so I just want to see if anybody else has any other questions. Let's see. Michael had a question. We covered that, where Maurice found the lead. And then Brett says, does the note stay in the seller's name? Great question. Yes. So the note, which is right here for Joshua Buss, this will stay in his name. So it's not going to be a mortgage assumption. We're not going to sign and assume the mortgage. We're just taking title. So it's really the best position for us to be in. So let's talk about the well, we've talked about all the positives. The only negative to this is if our tenant buyer, if we go that route, if they put, $8,000 down, we close, we take title, they move into the property, and then they miss their next payment, or they miss a couple payments, I don't know, they make a couple payments and they miss one, and now we have to do an eviction on them. Then there will be an eviction cost to do that, and then we got to get them out and put somebody else in, and then obviously we got to, the mortgage payment still has to be made until we put a new person in. The more money you collect from a tenant buyer, the less likely that is to happen, because they're vested in the property, right? If they put $8,000 down, the last thing they want to do is go through an eviction and lose their house. So it's a pretty safe and secure deal when you do that. The way to shoot yourself in the foot and not put yourself in a strong position is by putting somebody in there and taking very little down, right? Maurice, I know you had somebody say, hey, can they get it in with $1,000 down or something?
2001 was the amount of the rent and a deposit, which would be the first and last month or something like that.
Yeah, and that's like a standard lease amount. Somebody puts down first and last and maybe a deposit amount equal to 1 month's rent. While that's, evictions happen all the time, it's least likely. The more money they have in the deal, the least likely it is. The more motivated they're going to be to make that payment every month and see the deal all the way through, right? Plus, I think evictions cost about. I know whenever I do evictions, it costs me about $560. So even if we had to go through that, that would be the cost of doing business to get them out. But when you've got 8,000 you've collected, you're still ahead, right? And then you can put somebody else in and do it all over again. Obviously, that's not what we want, but you actually would end up coming out more ahead by doing that. But just so you know the good, the bad, and the ugly of how a rent to own or lease purchase option could go. All right, let's see. We've got a few minutes left. I want to see if there's any other questions that anybody else has.
I kind of missed the part where you were talking about the Del Toro, what was it, loan service?
Yeah, Del Toro loan servicing.
I was wondering if the tenant buyer wanted to actually just buy it outright, could they get a loan from them, or like, do you recommend a loan service?
They're just loan servicing. They just service loans, just like Wells Fargo home mortgage. They may not even. It looks like they're servicing this loan directly. Yeah, they are Wells Fargo home mortgage. No, Del Toro loan servicing, they don't do loans. They will take loans from mortgage lenders and do the accounting, the monthly accounting,
Okay.
Send out the mortgage statement, collect the payment, adjust the mortgage ledger, right? That's what they do. They just service the loan.
Okay.
All right. Well, guys, it looks like that's it. Brian says, congrats, guys. That's so cool. So I guess that's about it. That's all of our questions that I can see. So if nobody else has any other questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap the call. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm going to be in Thailand next week. I don't know. I doubt I'm going to be able to get on the call. So I'm going to say that we're not going to have a show next week. It'll be the week after that, the 28th is when we'll come back. All right. All right, everybody. Have a good evening. Thanks, Maurice.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Ryan.
the input. Thank you for sharing, your deal with us.
Thank you for helping me out.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. My pleasure. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good evening.